Okay, continuing on with this race. It's already taken 10 minutes to go over this first preamble part, so we don't want to spend all day on this. Race 6, a few more things we can have a look at is the summary. So looking at the summary figures very quickly. The last start sectional ratings, we've basically only got, 5 horses with ratings. So at the top we've got Net Effect and Lucky Elixir. And on the last start sectionals, there's only just a few sectional ratings in this race. So again, it's not the ideal kind of race we want to be looking at. But again, Net Effect is on top there again. So let's have a quick look at Net Effect. Going back to its form. 21 days off the concern, 59 kilos, barrier 7. It is well weighted in some ways compared with last start where it ran its scone. Arguably a stronger race, 59.5 last time, it's down to 59 and it's got a better barrier. If we have a look at its record, distance 5 for nothing, it's not exactly what you would call flying over 1600, and it's had one run at the track for no placings. Again, that doesn't mean that much. If we have a look at that run here, 14th of 16 at Dubbo, but it did go for a spell, so it may have been at the end of its spell, so in other words that run may be irrelevant. It does look a little bit doubtful at 1600 metres, but it must be some sort of chance. So if we go to the notes, try to find Net Effect, we'll highlight him. It would have to be one of the horses we'd have to be taking. Okay, now of course one of the features of the program is the direct comparisons. So if we go to the runs here, we'll find on the 20th of the 11th, the race won by Unresolved. There were 5 horses that ran against each other. Now again, we could do a whole lot of video analysis, which is going to take a lot of time to do. So we're not going to do that. Again, video analysis needs a certain amount of technique as well to be effective. But looking at this, sorting according to the ratings, we've got Unresolved on top, and followed by Living Choice, and then it's a bit of a gap to the rest of them. So I have to say, looking at this, Living Choice from barrier 10's moved to barrier 9, so it's not that much better off. Unresolved from barrier 4 to barrier 3, it is 1600 metres. You'd have to think Unresolved is going to run well again based on this evidence. Let's have a look at Unresolved. Okay, so he won that race on the 20th of the 11th and has had a couple of runs since. Is slightly back in distance, 10 days. So this horse is obviously going to be fit. It is back in distance 150 odd metres, which is a bit of a problem. It does race handy though, so it's probably not as big a penalty. And it has won at Dubbo, well, twice recently, over 1600 metres. We definitely would have to be taking this horse Unresolved. Let's highlight that one as well. And going back to the replays, the other one we wanted to take was Living Choice. Let's look at that one. Living Choice. Going back to that run, it's only had a couple of runs. Again, 11 days, so another horse is going to be a bit fitter. It has got form around the track. Again, it's going for a bit of a record in terms of wide barriers. Clearly is going to be running well, so we'd have to be taking that one. Living Choice. Now we can go for a few more replays here. The last one, 3rd of the 11th. We have a look at this again. We sorted to find out who's on top. George 2 with Greg Ryan. Greg Ryan is of course one of the better riders in that area, and so we want to have a look and see who he's riding. Let's have a closer look at George 2. We have got him as one of our chances. Yeah, he's racing well at Dubbo without winning. He's got barrier 7, he's gone back to barrier 1. 20 days off though, you would be thinking he's a lesser chance in terms of winning. He has got 1600 metre form, so we have to be thinking to take George 2 in some form or another. Probably more from a place. Let's go through and have a look at the replays a bit further. If we go down a bit further, here's the 6th to the 11th, the Melbourne Cup Day. Talk of the town is clear of the others. Now again, these ratings don't mean everything, but barrier 2 out to barrier 5 is not badly placed, and overall he was one of the ones we chucked out. Talk of the town. We'll have to be saying that we believe this is weaker form than the others, although he's unresolved, one of the horses we were talking about taking. So again, as everything in horse racing, nothing works perfectly all the time. We'll just leave it as is. And the Scone race that we talked about from before, there's net effect, clear of Voyages and Malibu Stacy. So based on this, we'd be thinking net effect is probably going to run well. Again, the 1600 is a bit doubtful. So we have these 3 horses at the minute: Living Choice, Net Effect and Unresolved. Let's have a look at the market. Living Choice, Net Effect are the top 2 picks in the market. Unresolved is the next pick, surprisingly. And then we've got a few others further down which are not highly fancied. So basically, looking at what we have here, and again, I don't want to spend all day on this, and I'm sure you don't want to listen to me go on for another 15-20 minutes about more of these chances. So let's have a look at one more replay if we've got another one. Orange. Again, when you've got more than 2 runners, obviously some of these races where there's 2 runners can be very useful as well. They're direct comparisons using the weights and the margins. So in other words, they're directly telling you which horses run well against the others. Now, one horse might be unlucky, another horse might be better suited over longer, and so on. It's not an end-all be-all, but these are snapshot figures which give you an idea about what's happening in these previous races directly. So in this race, at Orange, we have Trust Me Bill on top, and he is not fancied in our general form discussion. Percussion, not considered, and then we have the old Unresolved again. This time Unresolved is not featuring on top, so we should consider the Orange race for Unresolved as to see whether there's a reason as to why he's failed. Could have been the wide barrier. Okay, so it was a very weak race and it had a very low weight. And so based on this evidence here, you wouldn't be rushing to get on Unresolved based on that Orange run. However, based on the Dubbo run and the Muswellbrook run, there's one ran quite well, but not exactly the horse that you would be favouring as your top selection. So looking at the market, we have Living Choice on top. Going back to that, it's got reasonably good form over the distance, does have the bad barrier, does have a reasonable jockey. We'd have to be taking that as a strong chance. Net Effect, again, the only question is the distance. If there was no distance question here, I would be thinking Net Effect would be the likely winner, but the last 100 metres or so does look a little bit doubtful looking at this horse. George 2, he's got form over the distance and is racing quite well. 20 days off, but he does have a good cushy barrier and he doesn't need to lead, so the chances are he'll just be sitting in behind them and hopefully gets a run at the right time. And Unresolved, racing well over the distance, and other than that Orange run, has to be a strong chance. So in summary, we're just going to go for those 4 horses. We'll bet those 4 horses to win, we'll take him in a quinella and a trifecta just to go thin. George 2, I think we'll probably save on George 2. He doesn't look to be the best winning chance, so we'll take the other 3, 4, 5 and 10 to win. We'll save on George 2 and we'll take 4, 5, 8 and 10 in a quinella and trifecta. And if we were going to do the first 4, well, we'd put a very small amount on that. As I say, this is not the race for you to be betting your last, and certainly we could go through a greater analysis of the whole thing, but as I say, I don't want to be doing these races where I've done a whole lot of preparation for the race and then that's not shown. So what I've done on this race is what I've done. There's nothing more that I've done using simply the rating calculator to give you hopefully some advantage using a combination of the comparisons, the ratings, the sectional ratings and some general form analysis. So we'll come back later on. In fact, we'll just write this up on the page. So this is the end for the videos for these for this race for today. So there's 2 videos. We'll see how we go. Good luck for today.